Pearsall members, welcome to the month of October. I'm really glad that you guys are here with me today. And as always, I want to recognize you and say thank you for being part of the Pearsall community. It means the world to me to share my time and my spirit with you guys. And I love our monthly Zooms, our Ask Nikki Zooms. I encourage you to invite your friends or your family to join us every now and then. I think that the information that we share with one another is so beneficial that I think others would enjoy it too, and maybe they'll like to join our community as well. So if you ever feel like bringing anybody or having anybody sign on with you, I encourage that and I welcome that as well. The monthly discount code for the Pearsall members this month is 20% off any individual session with me. And I've been running that for a while. It seems to be what you guys like the best. But if there's any other perks or discounts that you would like to see, just let me know and I can add those in to our profile, and then we can enjoy those as well. So any ideas are always welcome. And our Ask Nikki Zoom this month will be held on October 20th, which is Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I will send out the link to you probably the day of or the day prior. You also can get the link if you go online and you book the session to come. It's free. All you have to do is click on it to register, and then you'll receive the link via email once you do that, or you can wait until I get to it and send it to you before the Ask Nikki starts on Wednesday, October 20th. I hope to see you guys there, and maybe we'll have some of your friends and family join us at that time. If you guys have any questions or any topics that you'd like to discuss and you think of them, during the month, like, oh, I'd like to talk to Nikki about this or to talk to the group about this, you can always bring those up or send those to me and I will bring them up during the time that we are in our Ask Nikki. So, okay, I think we can get started with our premier focus topic today. I wanted to let you know that I did choose a card for us for this month, and I got the Five of Swords. That made me feel a little, that's a hard card to receive. And if you'll notice that there are three characters in the Five of Swords. The question here during this talk is for me to ask you, which character in this group are you? So I do have some notes here because I find that it's just easier if I use notes than if I try to like read a script. So I am going to be referring to my notes during the time that I'm kind of trying to go through this. And also, I did already make this video, but when I made this video, I had the microphone on mute. So I talked for 25 minutes on mute and nothing came through. So I'm having to redo the video. So I want to make sure that I hit all of the points that I did hit in the first video I made. So the Five of Swords tarot card is a hard card because it really talks about conflict. It talks about defeat. It talks about ego. It talks about all of the spiritual lessons that come from conflict and competition and problems that we face in our life. And this card kind of tells me that October might not be the easiest month. You might find yourself in conflict. You might find yourself having to compete maybe for a job or for recognition or validation. But basically, the Five of Swords says, get ready because you have some difficult challenges coming up that you are going to have to decide what part of yourself you want to use to navigate those conflicts. If you'll notice in this tarot card, you can see that the earth is present, like land, and you can also see water in the card. And when I see land and water in any tarot card, it really tells me that I am looking at something that is like a dual perspective. I'm looking at the spiritual side of things as much as I'm looking at the egoic or the human side of things. So the Five of Swords really says that we have to dig a little bit deeper into the conflicts and the difficulties that we find come up in our life and decide how we want to proceed through those. So out of the three characters here, if you'll notice that the main character in the card, the one that is holding the swords, and he is the most dominant figure in the cards, in that card, he has his swords that are there, but then there's a few swords laying on the ground that he doesn't seem to be paying attention to. And if you look at his stance and the way that he is pictured in this card, it's like he feels a little pompous. He feels prideful. He feels victorious, like he won. And it seems like this conflict or this problem that happened amongst the three of the characters, um, their swords are on the ground. Those two other characters in the cards, their swords are on the ground. And that lets us know they lost. Like they lost that. They lost whatever it is, whether it was an argument or a competition or a betrayal, but they lost. And the thing that is so noticeable about this is the main character doesn't care about what they lost. He doesn't even seem like he wants it. He's more enjoying the idea that he feels prideful and victorious and he won. And it's not even that he wanted what they had. It was more of a competition and more of an ego boost for him. So when we're thinking about the Five of Swords, you can ask yourself that when faced with conflict or competition, how do you move through that? Are you this character? Are you the character that says, I'm going to win no matter what? And I am going to be the victorious one. And I don't care what these people lose. And no matter what it costs me or anyone else, I am going to succeed and I am going to win. And it's at the expense of others. And if you notice in this card, this character is fully aware that it's at the expense of the other two, and he doesn't seem to care. So we're looking at conflict and we're looking at ego and we're looking at competition. When we initially, let's say that this is about a disagreement or an argument, or there's always a situation. And in that situation, we maybe try to talk to the person that we have the conflict with. And initially, those communications come from a good place. You know, we want to fix something. But as the conversation progresses, emotions get involved. And then you notice that when these emotions are getting involved, you're kind of becoming prideful and you're getting angry. And then the intention of the argument changes, or the intention of the conversation that you're having, it changes. And when it changes, other energy gets involved. And, you know, if this is a land and water thing or a spirit and human thing, then we're saying what is happening on the human side when we're in conflict and when we're betrayed or when we're in competition or when something is just going wrong in our life. If we have a choice between the spirit side and the human side, then what is the human side? And the human side is filled with earth energy. And earth energy are things like our seven deadly sins. And I know that we have talked about that before, but if you think in the context of the seven deadly sins, we have rage and sloth and lust and greed and gluttony and envy and pride. So these are the earth energies that invade our situation. So we can perfectly start out a conversation with somebody and it can be a nice conversation until earth energy gets involved. And when earth energy gets involved, it changes the nature of the conversation, which then becomes an argument or a competition. And what happens to you? This card asks, what happens to you when you are in conflict? Who do you become in conflict? And at what point does it shift for you? What point does that earth energy come in and rage sets in and then pride sets in? And that's what happens to me. Like my dominant earth energy is rage. So if I begin a conversation with somebody and it starts to get a little heated, I'll feel rage kind of come into me and I'll start getting really angry. And I know once anger happens, then I'm going to become prideful. And then when I become prideful, I'm going to want to win. And then I'm going to win and I'm going to break you. So in my spiritual awakening that I had, when I was 28, I saw this so clearly that there is a point in time in our experience during a conflict that earth energy gets involved and it becomes a very negative thing. And so this character in this card, it's like he's so prideful and he's so not caring at all what's going on with the other people. So when you are in conflict, do you become this person? Do you have to win at all costs? And what is the earth energy that kind of invades you when you're in conflict? You know, if you're in competition and you want to win, it's good to work hard to try to win, but at what cost? And this card also tells you that sometimes what looks like winning is not actually winning. Because if earth energy gets involved and you get prideful and you get angry or you get envious, when all of those feelings leave you and tomorrow after the conflict, after those earth energies get out, you might feel bad about how you behaved during that conflict. And then the point that you won, it doesn't feel good anymore. And I know that all of us have been this main character at some point. And if you reflect back into your life, you know, when were you more prideful and angry or envious or gluttonous or greedy that those energies, earth energies invaded your experience and the next day you just felt terrible? That would be one of the times where you were the main character. And the thing to understand is that remorse does come afterward if earth energy gets involved. But now, if your spirit side or the flip side of that earth energy is what you hold on to during a conflict, it means that you will have patience and you will have charity and you will have love and you will have acceptance and you will have kindness and you will have good nature and you'll have humility and you will feel more surrendered. And, you know, ask yourself, sometimes you might win the thing, but then it doesn't feel good. And sometimes, even if you lose, it's more of like morally, it's like morally, sometimes you might have to lose what's on earth, or you might have to lose the argument in order to win the spirit side, and that you still gave patience and love and compassion and kindness. So focus on that for today, for the past, and for the future. That how can you not become the main character? Oops. The main character in this card that says, I won, you lose, ha ha ha. And approach situations recognizing what's the earth energy that usually gets you, because then you'll identify it and you'll be able to step away from it. The other characters in this card, like there is the character that is closest, the next character back, and if you'll notice, he is wearing like yellow. And to me, yellow calls really toward the solar plexus, and the solar plexus is self-identification. Now, this character is walking away. His self identification is kind of destroyed. And this character feels, and this character, this second character, the one dressed in the yellow, feels like, I'm just going to walk away. I'm just turning my back on this. It doesn't seem to matter what I do, whether I'm nice, whether I'm not nice, whether I try, whether I don't try, whether I put all my intention in. This second character here feels like it's okay. It doesn't matter what I do, but I am walking away with my head held high, so to speak. Like, I'm going to stay in the person that I am, that this conflict or this situation isn't going to change how I identify myself or who I am to the world. So this means that we have to have some kind of pre-knowledge of who we are in the world. So to give you a lighthearted example, I am the type of person that if you are at my house and I am on my way home and I have gone to a restaurant or I've gone to eat, I will bring you a meal and I will bring it to you because you're at my house. So that goes for my husband and my children and any company that any of them or I may have waiting at my house when I'm on my way home from a restaurant. I will bring food. Um, so my husband and I had a bit of a disagreement, and we found ourselves in conflict. And I was in this battle with myself, and I did get the earth energy. And so that wasn't pleasant. And he wasn't so nice. But in this conflict that we had with each other, the next day I had to go to work. And when I was on my way to work, I was so angry about the conflict that we were experiencing with one another that I was like, screw him, I'm not bringing him any dinner. And I may have told you guys this story in the past, but it serves for this example that when I got to the restaurant and I said, well, I'm not bringing him any dinner, there was this part of me that was like, don't change you. And that's kind of what I feel about this second character. Maybe he did get beaten down. Maybe he lost the battle. Maybe he didn't win the argument. Maybe he didn't get the so-called good outcome. But this person, this second character, is walking away from this, trying to maintain his sense of self. Who is he and who has he always been? And does this conflict have the power to change who he is? And that was the question I was faced with when I was at the restaurant, because my ego self, my conditioned self, the earth energy was like, screw him, don't get him any food. But then, my self identification, my solar plexus, my soul was like, hey, you are the type of person that does this thing. You bring people food. So be who you are to yourself. Like, don't abandon yourself. Don't walk away from who you are just because this person who is pompous or narcissistic, in other words, character number one, if, don't let character number one change who I am. And so I decided to bring my husband food because it's who I am. And I didn't want that conflict to strip me of myself. And that's often what happens when we get so angry with somebody that we kind of want to revenge, or we want them to see, or they'll figure it out and they're going to feel what we felt. When we are looking for something like that, we're going to lose, because at the end of the day, we have to look in a mirror, but at the end of the day, we're going to feel bad if we not only lose the fight, but then we separate from ourselves and we're not even who we define ourselves to be. And that discrepancy had such control over us that it changed who we are. In the Five of Swords, the second character here, he doesn't let that happen. He stays within his core. He stays within who he is. And even if he lost, he's still walking away with a sense of dignity, a sense of himself, and his ability to stand in his truth, which means he took the morally, accurate way. Maybe he lost the war or the battle, but he didn't really lose because he still is connected and within himself. And that's really the most important thing. So this would be a reflection for you of, when in my life have I lost the fight? But when I walked away from that fight, how did I feel with myself? Was I able to maintain who I am and who I define myself to be? Or did that conflict or situation have so much power over me that it stripped me of my truth and it stripped me of who I am? The third character in here, he is way far away. He's kind of walking away. His head looks like it's kind of like, I'm just done. This is the person that is like, I give up, right? This is my victimhood. And we really want to ask ourselves, do we prefer to live in victimhood? And I lived in victimhood for like 3 days one time, and it was too much for me. Like, it's too hard to be a victim because then you have to wait for everybody to attend to you. And it's just a downward spiral once you agree to victimhood, because you do lose your sense of self. You lose your connection to yourself, and the world doesn't care what happened to you, right? It's only your inner self that is struggling with what happened to you or what you are experiencing. So it's important that you try to be the parent that you wish you would have had, or that you treat yourself to a special birthday gift if the people in your life don't buy you one. and you feel sad that they didn't get you a birthday gift. So then every year on your birthday, treat yourself to a birthday gift, and then you have that birthday gift, and you will never depend or expect or even think anybody else would get you a birthday gift. And it's just a lighthearted example to kind of give you an understanding that sitting in victimhood will get you nowhere. And this third character is like, I'm out, he's like, forget it, I'm out. And there's no, he's wearing his heart, and he looks kind of slumped over, and he looks like the victim. When in our lives, or when in your life, when in my life, did victimhood happen? And when it did, how did it impact you? And at what point did you come out of it? Or did you never come out of it and you're still the victim? The idea is, in any difficult situation, if you are noticing that you feel victimized, or you are the victim, or people are telling you you're living in victimhood, or you feel like you are, then it's not a huge deal. All it means is that you haven't found the gift in that experience that is for you, because this earth is about teaching us the contradiction between human and spirit. And our goal is to live with spirit living within our humanity so we can have the best experience in our lives. So if we're holding on to some past trauma that we keep going back to as a victim, we're the third character, right? And we're going to lose. So we have to not allow ourselves to do that by getting into that trauma, into that past experience, and saying, yes, this was a shitty thing that happened to me, or this was a shitty thing that was done to me. And this is how it victimized me. And I agree that it's okay to understand those emotions and to recognize where they put you in your life. But you can't stop with just the negative side of that situation. And there are some situations that, holy crap, it is really hard to find anything positive in some horrendous situations that you may experience or may witness somebody else experiencing. But the idea is, please try to find some benefit in there, because there is always something in there that God is going to show you or awaken you to or make you realize. And if you can find the gift in that really, really difficult experience, then you don't end up waiting for the world to love you, because you learn to love yourself. So let me think of a good example for that. So I'm just going to default to the example I always share with you guys. My dad kicked me out when I was a little girl for the first time when I was 7. So I can hold on to that and feel victimized by that. And I can experience a lot of the things in my life will then represent that type of victimhood. If I stay in that, oh, my daddy kicked me out when I was 7, and that's why all these bad things happen to me, and look, it happens to me all the time, and oh my goodness, this is just the way my life goes, and poor me, and I can't believe anybody will make that better for me. And that's victimhood from that experience. Initially, we are all victims in that initial recognition, right? In that initial experience. Our goal is to not let ourselves get stuck in that victimhood. So then we take the flip side of that negative experience and those emotions that we had, and we say, okay, what is the good thing that came out of this? Okay, my daddy kicked me out when I was 7. Well, thank God he did that, because it kind of taught me to be very independent. I'm a survivor. I really don't depend on other people to do it for me. I try to do it on my own. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to work 3 jobs to support my family. Like, I'm not sitting there crying and, woe is me all the time. So, yes, it's a negative experience, but yes, something positive came out of that experience. And if I focus on the positive that came out of that experience and I utilize what that gift is, it takes this trauma and it neutralizes the trauma, which means that you don't default there anymore. And this character in the 5 of Swords didn't do that. He's deciding to live in the victimhood. So our question today is, who are we? in the Five of Swords. And when have we been each one of these characters? How do we mitigate becoming each one of these characters in a negative context, right? Because there's a positive and negative side to everything. It's good to fight for what you want, but not at the expense of others. It's good to maintain your sense of self and connection to yourself as long as it's not belittling another or becoming prideful over another. And it is okay to feel victimized and to experience those emotions and feel them. But then it's also important to find the part of you that is not victimized and that receives some kind of knowledge, awakening, gift, epiphany, or ability after that experience. And who did you become for the world as a result? So the Five of Swords says, yep, some shitty things happen. Yep, you're going to find conflict, competition, and dilemma in your life, and you have found it in the past. You may be finding it coming up here soon. Maybe you're going through some things like that right now, but keep in mind that you have a choice in the Five of Swords of these three different personalities, and you have a positive aspect to each of those personalities as well as a negative aspect to each of those personalities. And if you review your own past experiences, you'll be able to define things about who you become in a conflict and what earth energy is that. Is that a prideful one? Is that a jealous one? Is it a greedy one? Is it a rageful one? And then you'll start to recognize when that shift happens, and you'll be able to have that choice point where you can decide if you want to go with the land or the water, you know, if you want to go with the spirit or the human self. I think that I covered everything that was in the previous video, and I'm so mad that it didn't, it was on mute, because I think I covered everything, but we can talk about this again at our Ask Nikki if you guys are interested. And again, if you guys have any topics that you want to discuss at the Ask Nikki or any questions, I encourage you to, you can send them to me and I'll bring them up. If you don't want to be the one talking, that's fine. But thanks for joining me today, and I hope that you guys stay very blessed, and I love you, and I will see you at the Ask Nikki